that spell for eons, editing those fucking product reviews and D&D shows until my fingers bleed. And what do we have here? New Warlock potentials. Ready to make a deal for power, are we? Well, welcome, my friends. My name is Astral, your new patron of chaos. So welcome one and all to the Terms of the Pact. This is just another one of the many different forms of TTRPG content happening here on Crit Happens. Terms of the Pact is simply focused on building your D&D characters in ways that blend the mechanics of D&D with roleplay. We may be getting into Baldur's Gate 3 at some point and possibly other TTRPGs, but that's not to be determined yet. I honestly truly believe that something like TTRPGs is one of the best outlets for nerds like us to stay creative and fire those neurons into something kind of interesting. So why not use this to make something wonderful for you and your party and your DM? The stories are kind of boundless here. Now, there will be moments that I mention mechanics that will need to be discussed with your DM because everyone plays differently. I always encourage honesty and transparency when talking to your DM about these kind of things, because just kind of expecting something to work and your DM not liking it and changing it, it's kind of the last thing you want in the middle of a game. It can really bog down the table and potentially the fun. So talk to your DM. I'll try to make sure to leave note of it in the moment I talk about it, either in a small edit or I'll mention it in the time of when I'm talking about it. Just something to be aware of. Now, with the idea of the series out of the way, let's get into those terms. Soft crunch of freshly laid snow resonates from below each labored footstep the insatiable poacher took. They always knew hunting at night was the best way to catch any prey off guard. The icy moon illuminating through the small gap of woven trees, the only thing tearing away the swaths of darkness. Something has to be of value in these goddamn woods, they whispered to themselves. In the still of night were no hooting of owls or laborious snores of bears. A petite doe lay dying by an old tree, laced in wounds and scars. The poacher drew their bow. Small pelt's still a pelt, they schemed almost aloud in their mind. They've done this so many times before, but never to something so small, so defenseless. Practically doing it a favor. The fletching of the air almost felt warm as they notched. Almost as warm as that hide. And with his release, the anguished doe cried aloud, tearing apart the still of the night. He quickly returned his things to their places and drew a carving dagger, ready to tear apart this small being. The moonlight retreating until no light could be drawn any further. Blood soaked his gloves as they drew anything he deemed valuable from this small life freshly taken. Filling his pack to the brim, he decided it's time to retrace his steps. Carefully following his tracks back, he couldn't shake the feeling. Eyes darting among the dark of night, following his every movement. Trick of the night, damn it, he thought as he moved along. But then he felt it. The weight of the creature tearing, butchering, slaughtering its way through the tree line. Come on, fight, damn it, he cried out, readying his short bow. And then the fear gripped his heart as he remembered one last time. Hunting at night was always the best way to catch prey off guard. Wasn't that fun? Today's PC is a little gem I call the Bear Devil. A personal twist on a potentially classic multi-class that I really enjoy. I don't know if it's a classic or not. It's just one that I really like, and I've seen it floating around every now and then, so I was hoping to bring this a little more to light if it wasn't in the light. But the basic concept revolves around being as tough as a bear as you rip and slaughter through your foes with natural weapons. Today's multi-class is going to be a Barbarian Warlock one, and I have to begin with this. We will not be going Bear Totem Barbarian. I see you. No, I see you. Get away. Get out of here. No one wants you around. We're trying to have some unique, some class around here. But this does involve some trickery with Warlock shenaniganeries, as we always kind of get into with the mindlessness of a barbarian. So let's get right into it. From our little prologue story, you might have guessed where I'm kind of going with the theming of this character. Kind of a more naturalistic bear, aggressive, big animal, and this can be changed out with like a different kind of animal if you really want it to be. This could be a werewolf, even though I will be going into a more werewolf focused build, whatever you want to call it, in a different episode. I personally like bears. I think bear is kind of cool for this build. It's kind of a natural person who takes on that bear aesthetic and kind of transforms into a demon bear to protect nature and all it holds dear. So kicking things off, our race, we're going with Shifter. Now, any of the sub-race versions of Shifter is fine. I have two in mind here that I think will be most beneficial for you. First being Beast Hide. It gives us a bonus action to gain 1d6 temporary HP and +1 to our AC. So this is going to be really good if you're going for the barbarian tank route of your party. If you need someone that's going to soak up all the hits, this might be the better option for you. However, I think the real juice here is Wild Hunt. Wild Hunt lets you get, as a bonus action, advantage against wisdom checks, which is kind of nice since we're not the best at wisdom here, as well as no creature within 30 feet of you can make an attack roll against you with advantage. That is going to be pretty big here, and if you're any bit smart about D&D, you know about Rage, and that just sounds like peanut butter and jelly right there to me if it doesn't. We'll be sticking with Wild Hunt for my personal build of this character, but switching gears now, we're going to go to head backgrounds. I recommend something along the lines of Far Traveler. If this PC doesn't exactly fit into your DM's world 100%, that kind of makes the most sense for me here. Hermit would be really good if you want to take this person as a natural tribesman who was abandoned by their tribe, or, you know, something along those lines. Although one that I don't ever really see, and I think would be awesome bonus points, would be the Uthgarth tribe member. I can see this barbarian be some kind of like Faerunian bear that took a demon pact and is just ready to kick ass. If that doesn't sound like ultimate barbarian fantasy, I do not know what is. But we can make our ways here to the juicy bits with stats and levels. We're going to start off with point buy just to make finishing this episode easier. So we'll be taking a 14 to our strength, a 13 to our dexterity, a 15 to our constitution, a measly 8 to our intelligence and wisdom, and a 13 to our charisma score. And then as far as I know, most tables use Tasha's, so I'm a little okay saying, hey, talk to your DM about using the Tasha rules for races. I think most tables do, so I'm going to set off and imagine here that we get to choose where our +2/+1 or a 1/1/1 will go. And we'll be taking a +2 to constitution, and we'll be taking a +1 to our strength score. Leaving us with a final range here of a 16 in strength, 13 dex, 15 constitution, 8 intelligence and wisdom, and a 13 charisma. Now, we'll be needing the charisma score a little bit later when we multiclass into Warlock. For now, it's just going to be kind of a dead stat, unfortunately, but we'll make do with at least a little extra bit of RP potential. We're not the stupidest in the realm of social skills. I mean, we're pretty dumb when it comes to a lot of other things, but the benefits and joys of playing a barbarian, right? Moving along proficiencies, you can kind of take whatever you feel here. Again, when it comes to these kind of things, I like letting the player choosing the character make their own decisions. If I personally was playing this character, I would like to have well, we got survival from our shifter already, so that's a good bonus. I like athletics and perception mostly here, just to kind of give a little hint at where my brain at for future videos later. I might talk about why perception's kind of an overrated skill, but it's a skill that a lot of people use in their games, so I like getting perception here. And then you're the strong guy. There's usually not a lot of strong PCs in the party, so having athletics just means you get to be the strong guy just that much more, which is really helpful. That's my only real, you know, skill choice recommendations here. The biggest one is we're going to be moving on to equipment. I would recommend the hand axe, and then as soon as you can, try to get a shield. We're going to have a 14 AC with our current stats and unarmored defense, so getting to at least a 16 will make everything a little more bearable. Bearable.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, bad puns aside. It doesn't really matter if you can get that shield too much. It's mostly for level 1, possibly level 2 help, but it makes things a little bit easier, and we will be dropping it later, so that's an important thing to note. But the later does become now, because we're going to go ahead and jump 2 levels into Barbarian. So we're now a level 3 Barbarian. We picked up Danger Sense along the way, and our subclass. So picking up this subclass, we'll be taking Beast Barbarian. Something about the idea of playing a shifter that is a Beast Barbarian is just so flavorful. You're already shifting this animalistic kind of creature with our bonus action. Now when we rage, we also shift further into this animalistic person. You know, we go full feral. It just kind of jives so much with this nature and animal person that we've created for ourselves here. And when we rage, we're going to be getting a few natural weapons to play around with here. So for starters, we get a kind of a bestial maw here that our mouth gets big and animalistic, and we do get 1d8 plus strength piercing as a new weapon. And if we do land this attack when we're below half HP, we do regain some HP back equal to the damage. That's pretty nice, especially if you're taking that more tanky role I was talking about earlier, and we do start combat kind of wounded in the thick of the enemies. Getting that AC back is really helpful, especially as a barbarian, as we don't really have ways to do that normally. The other option we have is a 1d8 tail. It's a spiny tail, and if we do get hit by an enemy, we can go ahead and roll a d8 as a reaction and add that to our AC, potentially making the roll miss. I think that's pretty snazzy, especially again if you're taking that defensive role. However, I think the real fun here comes in the form of the claws. Your hands become 1d6 slashing weapons, and while your hands are free, you can make an additional claw attack as part of that same attack. So this just gives us an extra attack. And this makes making multi-classing out of Barbarian just that much easier to handle, because we won't be missing extra attack for a few levels. And now at this point, we could go into level 4 Barbarian and get the ASI feat with everybody else. But I think if we can delay it for just 1 level, you'll really enjoy it here. And this is where we're going to make our Fiend Pack. So now we take on this devilish properties to really add along to this Bear Devil. And alongside our Fiend Pack, we'll be getting Dark One's Blessing. And now you could ask your DM if you wanted to go 2024's version of Dark One's Blessing versus 2014's. The only real benefit there is that it makes it so that death around you adds to your temp HP here versus a 2014 when you had to do it. Again, that's a talk to your DM thing. Either way here, when you score a kill, you'll get some temp HP. And I think that's where the magic of this build comes in. You're in the thick of it, you're killing things, you're getting, for now, unfortunately, only 2 temporary HP. But since we're raging, that's already bumped up to 4 thanks to our resistances. And it's repeatable without needing a spell. That we really like. For spells you can take with your Warlock, I would focus more on RP related things since your DC is pretty atrocious. I would focus on cantrips like Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, or even Create Bonfire if you just need a quick place to set up camp for the night. And then for spells, you can feel free to take something like Speak with Animals or Protection from Good and Evil. However, the only real important one here you'll need to be taking is Armor of Agathis. So now when you hop into battle, if you know you're going into battle, beforehand you can pop that Armor of Agathis, get 5 temp HP to start the fight with, and the most important thing here is that whenever you take damage, you'll be dealing 5 cold damage out as long as you have this temp HP. So now this 5 temp HP is effectively 10, and anytime you get hit while you have those temp HP, you're dishing out 5 cold damage. You're going to be dishing out a lot of cold damage very quickly. And since we're raging, we can just throw Reckless Attack whenever we like, because we're going to be dealing damage back. And if you have the time at some point to shift into your shifter form, you're not even getting advantage against yourself. That is just so good. So now you're punishing enemies for hitting you, for even daring to look at you while you claw and slaughter and maul these fools. Now there is potentially one point of contention with the point I made about cantrips. You could talk to your DM about having Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade work with your claws. I actually hesitate to offer that as an option here because the spell does say they require a weapon at least worth 1 silver. I mean, if you want to go beat up a guy and put a silver bounty on your head, go for it, I guess, if their DM will allow it. But another thing of note to put here is that when you take this cantrip, you'll be losing out on that extra attack from the claws as they require you to take the attack action, which you won't be. You're casting a cantrip. So you do lose out on some damage there for not a lot of gain, because you'll be doing 1d8 to a guy that's not even the one you're attacking, or 1d8 to the Booming Blade guy and hope he moves. Kind of cool, but not really what we're jiving for here. And at this point, we'll now be moving along to our 5th level overall of the character, which we will hop back to a Barbarian, so we can take the ASI feat. Now, personally, I do really enjoy taking feats instead of ASIs. However, with this character, you're already so strong baseline. You really want to focus on leaning into that play style. So I would focus on ASIs here just to make your hits more reliable. You could take 1 and 1 into Dex and Charisma, or +2 into Strength. Those are my 2 main ASI recommendations here. And I think for my personal build, I would take the 1 Dex, 1 Charisma, just to get 1 more point out of Dark One's Blessing, just to turn that 2 effective 4 into a 3 effective 6, and get a +1 to AC. I kind of do like having a little bit of good AC, so having that +1 there is nice. Yeah, you're not going to be at an 18 right away and absolutely slaughtering everyone, but you're level 5. Hopefully at this point your DM was kind to you and threw at least 1 or 2 magical items your way. You could really hope for an Insignia of the Claws to get you that little bit of help you might need, or Bracers of Defense, something along those lines. If you did want to take feats though, Mobile would be a pretty good choice here, I would say, just so you can dip in and out of combat pretty quickly, dip between enemies, really tear up the battlefield. Savage Attacker would also be great just to get your numbers up a bit higher. But at the end, I'm taking +1/+1 Dex Charisma here, and I think you should too. Okay, as we level up here, we're going to be taking either 1 or 2 more levels of Warlock. Now I say 1 or 2 because this is going to be a discretion between you and your DM. That note I said earlier about needing to talk to your DM, this one's going to be a big one. So you can take 1 more level into Warlock, which is the baseline, that'll give us our Eldritch Invocations. We'll be grabbing Fiendish Vigor and Devil Sight for now, just so how we have an extra temp HP spell that we can just roll onto ourselves and make sure we're always temp HP'd up before we get into combat. And Devil Sight's always nice to have just so we can see in the dark just that much better. Stops darkness, advantage, shenaniganeries against us, or maybe we're doing that ourselves with our party and we can hop in on the fun now. A bear in the dark does sound pretty wild. However, if you did go to Warlock 3, we would get our Pact boon, and this is why I say that you might need to talk to your DM here, because there's only one real reason we want to take a Pact boon, and that's to get Pact of the Blade and eventually hit level 5 Warlocked. The big contingency here would be making sure that our DM is okay with counting our claws as our Pact weapon. Maybe our patron here grants us better strength with our claws or something along those lines to make it more believable in the story, or maybe impacts them in one way or another. Maybe we can do our cantrips, shenaniganeries with Booming Blade and Green Flaming Blade, like I said earlier, because our patron allows it. But we would also then take more levels in Warlock till we hit level 5 Warlock, so we're effectively level 3 Barbarian, level 5 Warlock. And I'll get back to the ASI because we will be hitting it in the other version in a second. But the big kicker here would be we would take away Devil Sight, add Thirsting Blade, so now we have real extra attacks, so 3 attacks total with our claws. And we would also take Eldritch Smite. If our DM allowed us to use Green Flame Blade and Booming Blade, we would then try to see if our DM would allow us to then use that same weapon for Eldritch Smiting. Now, since we are using temp HP here with Fiendish Vigor, Armor of Agathis, we most likely will be only 1 Warlock slot into the fight, so we would only get 1 Eldritch Smite encounter. But that is pretty powerful and a pretty fun way I could see your DM and you increasing the bond between you and your patron, really becoming this evil guardian protector of nature who's truly neutral and does not care. It is just a powerhouse to defend what you're here to defend. And in case you don't know, Eldritch Smite is a Warlock spell that mimics Divine Smite, adding d8 of damage to our attack per Warlock slot. And you know, Warlocks always have in their maximum level slot progresses while you progress. So you get 1d8 and then d8s per spell slot. It's pretty nice. It's pretty juicy. It also auto-prones anything huge or smaller. So it's also a good way to be that kind of like tanky role, because now you're eliminating someone from doing good attacks. And hey, fighter, monk, even the cleric, maybe if he's one of those battle clerics, come in and smack this poor loser who just got knocked down by a bear. Pretty fun. However, again, this is all contingent on your DM and what they allow power-wise. If you're not able to take this route, I personally would just stop at level 2 Warlock and enjoy the rest of the way Barbarian. If you did take this route after level 5 Warlock, same deal, just go all the way Barbarian and have a fun ride the rest of the way. We did pick up an ASI after all that with either way we took, so I will say whatever you didn't take last ASI, you would take this time. So since I took +1 Dex +1 Charisma, now I'll be taking +2 Strength. And this is where the build for me with this party will end, because we're at level 9 here, and I think most parties end around 9 through 11. So it feels like a comfortable place to end. You can put those last 2 levels, if you go to 11, to whatever you like, into more Barbarian, more Warlock, whatever fits with your roleplay. And yeah, that's the build. You get to go into combat never really fearing needing health, because as long as you're killing, you're gaining temp HP, which is gaining essentially health for you. Hopefully, unless you're going against like a literal horde of orcs and goblins, you won't be too in the red, but hey, that's what the party healer's for, or potions. The last thing I'll leave a note on is, remember, as you're taking levels of Warlock and levels of Barbarian, these kind of characters are really meant to be RP'd out super hard. So when you take that level of Barbarian, you know, maybe you're training real hard, you're lifting weights, punching trees, whatever it is your Barbarian does and makes them happy. And then when you move into Warlock, maybe they're, you know, they're meditating on their pact, or they're doing seances and rituals to appease their patron, you know, anything of the sort, you know. That kind of thing is such integral to what I want to do here with these builds. And they'll be a little more in depth with better builds and builds that I can actually get a little more teeth into. I just really loved this multi-class and thought it deserved some love, so I whipped up something quick for this first episode. But either way, that is the end of this episode. So my little Warlocks, I hope you all enjoyed. There's going to be a lot more content coming to Crit Happens with, you know, our campaigns, with Thomas continuing his product reviews, and some more content coming out that's not D&D related. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and, you know, cringy YouTuber outro. Remember to like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, my little Warlocks.